Welcome back to Formula One Bet. My name is Noah Mosley, and thank you so much for watching. If you haven't done so already, please like, comment, and subscribe down below. In this video, we will be previewing the odds for the 2024 Formula One Spanish Grand Prix weekend. So let's go ahead and let's get into it. Before we get into the Spanish Grand Prix weekend, we have to recap the Canadian Grand Prix weekend from 2 weeks ago. So honestly, I think that this race was easily the race of the season, just based upon the performance of all four teams that really were in the mix, besides Ferrari, into the actual race themselves. Going into the race weekend, Ferrari was probably going to be one of the top contending teams, and they actually looked to be pretty decent in practice as well. But when it came time for, the qualifying session and then the actual race, they did not fend pretty well. Mercedes, it was nice to see them get into the mix and see George on pole position once again. The rain that came, brought some wet weather racing along with some dry track racing, and I think with the mixture of those, it allowed for, a true competition for the race win throughout the entirety. We saw, George in front at one point in time. We saw Lando in front at one point in time and, get kind of screwed over by the safety car, which is kind of a makeup from Miami. But, throughout the entirety of the race, we actually had enjoyment. However, we did reach the end result of Max, taking home the victory, but that's not really much of a surprise. And, I will take that type of race all day. Even if Max, comes away with the victory. So I was looking at the Spanish Grand Prix. It's actually a home race for two of the Formula One drivers on the grid, one being Carlos Sainz of Ferrari, and then the other being Fernando Alonso over at Aston Martin. It's sad to say that only really Carlos will have a true chance at securing that hometown victory win. But with that being said, I just don't think that Aston Martin will show up with that pace advantage. Especially because throughout the entirety of the year, they kind of just hung around the midfield. I think it will be interesting to see what Ferrari does this weekend, as they completely shit the bed when it came to Canada. But I think that they will recover quite nicely here in Barcelona, just due to the fact that the track suits them pretty well. So hopefully Carlos might have a hometown victory. Now, with looking at the track for the Spanish Grand Prix weekend, it is raced at the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya, and it's composed of 14 corners. And honestly, I think that this is one of the best tracks on the Formula One calendar, just because it does provide for some pretty good racing. And essentially, they took away that final chicane into turn 14 and kind of made it a medium speed corner. And by them doing that, it definitely provides a good flow throughout the entirety of the track. And I think it does provide for more overtaking opportunities on the start-finish straight as well. So I think that, if we carry over the momentum from Canada into the Spanish Grand Prix, I think we're in for another great race. And I think that essentially with a couple of teams bringing some upgrade packages, there's still a contending fight for to take pole position and even the race win as well. So looking forward to the Spanish Grand Prix, and let's go ahead and let's get into our race predictions. Alrighty, starting off with who I have for my shot in the dark to take pole position for the Spanish Grand Prix is Carlos Sainz. Now, Carlos is sitting at plus 1,800 odds over on DraftKings and FanDuel, and I think that this is a pretty good bet, just because Carlos is going to want to show off in front of the home crowd, and he definitely has a car to do that as well. And so I think that this track, suits their car pretty well. Now, with that being said, that they also went pretty well in Monaco, which is the complete opposite of this track layout. So I think it'll be interesting to see how competitive they are throughout the race weekend, but I think that Carlos is a good bet here. Who I have for my potential lock to take pole position for the Spanish Grand Prix is Lewis Hamilton. Now Lewis is sitting at plus 1,800 odds over on FanDuel, and I think that this is a good recovery for Lewis coming up this weekend. I think that this is a circuit that he is very familiar with, and I think that Mercedes' car were starting to come alive in Canada. Now, I know that Lewis really wasn't happy with how the race turned out, and I think it's partially due to Mercedes strategies calls. You know, they're always just going against grain, and not always is it the wrong call. But I would say Lewis has kind of figured out more times than not, it really hasn't been the right call, at least in the past couple of years. And so I would say he's going to want to come back. And he's going to want to show off his talents. And I think that he is more than likely on, putting it up on pole, especially if Mercedes gives him the car to do it, just because he's done it so many times in the past. And who I have for my best bet to take pole position for the Spanish Grand Prix is Lando Norris. Now, Lando is sitting at plus 500 odds over on BetMGM, Bet365, and FanDuel. And honestly, I think that Lando has easily been the second fastest qualifier, just behind Max throughout the entirety of the season. Now, it will really be interesting to see what McLaren's car will do, especially in this weekend being the start of many high-speed races going throughout the rest of the season. I know we're heading to Austria next and then over to the United Kingdom for the British Grand Prix. And so both of those circuits are very high speed. And so this is kind of sets the pace for the next three races at least. And so with their car, on the track, I think that it usually suits very well in the medium speed to high speed corners. Now, they have actually figured out their low speed discrepancy and, getting their car to suit a lot better in the low speed corners than where it was at last year, which is good, but it could impact the performance of the car in the high speed to medium speed corners just because, you have to give up some type of performance to gain some performance in the low speed corners. And so how much that performance discrepancy is, that's what we'll have to kind of figure out going into this weekend. But with that being said, I'm still predicting McLaren's car to be up there, if not the top contending team. And so I would say go ahead, lock in Lando for your best bet to win pole position for the Spanish Grand Prix. And who I have for my shot in the dark to win the Spanish Grand Prix is Checo Perez. Now, Checo is sitting at plus 4,000 odds over on BetMGM. And this is definitely a shot in the dark, but I will say that Checo has the tendency at the random times to just pull performance out of his ass. And I think that we see that maybe this weekend, just because he has put together another slump. And so, it's just a matter of time till he pulls himself out. Now, will he get the performance to win the race? I really don't know, but I think that, if this track suits him pretty well, in which last year it really didn't. He had a couple of mistakes throughout the entirety of the qualifying session, which kind of set him back behind the grid. So if he's able to improve his performance, have a good qualifying position, and show, everybody that he has an ample amount of race pace in that car, I think that he could surprise everybody and have a bounce back race. So go ahead, lock him in as your shot in the dark to win the Spanish Grand Prix. And who I have for my potential lock to win the Spanish Grand Prix is Charles Leclerc. Now, Charles is sitting at plus 900 odds over on FanDuel, and honestly, I think this is pretty hand-in-hand with Carlos Sainz's prediction, just in the fact that, I really don't know how Ferrari's going to fend going into this weekend. They were strong in Monaco, but really it's hard to tell on how the car's performance will do in such a different circuit. And we also saw Ferrari completely botch his Charles's race in Canada. And so I know that Charles will want to come back and put up a solid performance, have it be a smooth weekend, probably not default from the strategy too much. But with that being said, I think that Charles does have a great race pace in that Ferrari, and he can easily win the race if he's within the top 5. So go ahead, lock him in as your potential lock to win the Spanish Grand Prix. And who I have for my best bet to win the Spanish Grand Prix is Lando Norris. Now, Lando is sitting at plus 600 odds over on BetMGM, and Lando has shown throughout the entirety of the season that he is probably going to be Max's true competitor for the World Drivers' Championship this year. Now, he did have a slow start at the beginning of the year, but he's picked it up quite impressively throughout the last couple of races. I would say really both him and Oscar have scored a good amount of points for McLaren team as a whole. But with looking at Lando himself, I think that he will continue this performance over into the Spanish Grand Prix. If you look at the Canadian Grand Prix when it was raining quite a bit, we saw Lando have extreme pace on the inners, and he kind of just got screwed over by the safety car, missed it by a couple of meters to get into the pits, but unfortunately, that's just how the dice roll sometimes, and so it didn't work out in his favor. But I will say that he showed that he had the ample amount of race pace to easily win that race, and it was nice to see him, genuinely overtake him on track, Max Verstappen on track. And so I think that, we might be in for an exciting race this weekend. So go ahead and lock in Lando Norris to win the Spanish Grand Prix. Alrighty, that's all I had, and thank you so much for watching. If you haven't done so already, please like, comment, and subscribe down below. Looking ahead, we have the Austrian Grand Prix weekend coming up next week, as it is the second round of our triple header going into the next couple of weeks. And so looking forward to that race. It is a high-speed circuit as well, and should allow for some pretty good racing on that track. And so be sure to tune in to this weekend for the Spanish Grand Prix. And as always, happy racing.